This episode contains discussions around mental illness. Discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs help, please contact a local support agency.
Tēnā tātou te whānau, no mai hoki mai ki Tuku Talks, a podcast where we talk about anything that rangatahi wants us to talk about. We're back here in the car park, so you might hear some rain, you might hear some buses, you might hear...
Boy races, girl races, it's 2022.
Taihua ka kite. You're here with me, one of your co-hosts, Turia and Janaye.
Kia ora, I'm the other co to the host, it's Janaye Henry.
And today we are talking about men's mental health, and we are welcoming Heemi Kapa-Kingi.
Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, kia ora. Well, first, we're going to get straight into it. Mm-hmm. Very broad question. What is mental health?
What is mental health? I suppose it's a component that's part of a greater holistic health model. And in the sense that it's largely to do with the cognitive part of the way our health works. So largely looking at what happens in terms of our behaviours, the way we think, the way we learn, the way we engage with others as well. So it's quite a big component in and of itself. But in saying that, it's also part of wider wholesome health, I guess, for humans and for tātou te Māori.
Because I think, like, even I used to get confused with mental health and mental illness. Everyone has mental health, eh?
Yes,
like,
yeah.
Maybe not the other
Yes.
one. yeah. No, we all got mental health, man. I need to stop being
Yeah.
Nah, that's cool. And how is men's mental health different to, like...
I'll say this as a start. A lot of it's similar to wahine in terms of female mental health, but there are some strong contrast for tāne, that being our experiences, the ways we've been taught to deal with our mental health or mental health issues, and more importantly, the way we express those. Very different for our wahine, in terms of our wahine, but for our mental health, it has a lot of key parts that are shared with wahine, but in terms of the stuff that makes us different, and I think that's where a lot of our mental health issues come from.
And so, what is your mahi? What is your, I know you're studying at uni and you're also working part-time, but what's your mahi in mental health?
So my mahi in mental health started actually quite a while ago with some of the work I was doing with Tini Health Trust all the way up in Whangarei. But since then, 10 years or so ago, I moved here to Auckland and started a mental health kaupapa called SoftenupBro with my mate, John Kingi. So SoftenupBro, in terms of its genesis, was a direct flip on the saying we hear as men here in Aotearoa, which is harden up, bro. So we wanted to change the script or flip the narrative and make it soften up, bro, and try and encourage men to be more emotionally available, more emotionally vulnerable with themselves and more importantly with others. So that's kind of like my in, I suppose, into the mental health space, and through this kaupapa has given us some opportunity to try and realise that dream or realise that ambition within it.
With your kaupapa, SoftenupBro is a direct call out. I've been trying to get my hands on a shirt for so long.
Yeah.
They sell out so fast.
Yes, yeah.
What's happening? Can we be getting more of the pre-orders in or something?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm gutted.
I think with the turn of the Māori New Year after Matariki, probably going to look at doing another drop of these t-shirts themselves.
Oh, those are shoes.
Yeah, they're so cool.
Kaupapa, kōrero with the kaupapa, and then on the back, I don't know if you can see it, but it says "Boys Can Cry Too," which has kind of been our key slogan, and supporting men, supporting fellas just to be like, to read it, to go like, oh, it's okay if I do choose to do this. So in terms of the t-shirts, yes, we're going to do another drop sometime soon.
Oi, thank you. They sell out so fast.
Mean is.
So if you're like listening, you got to be setting alarms.
Yeah,
I've set
100.
alarms and I'm still not there. I'm trying to get my pre-order in after this app.
If you're a Brita, you should definitely get one. Yeah.
Sorry, that was just me really wanting the merch.
I love that. So we talked about, how there is this idea that men can't cry or they do need a harden up. Do you find, and because we do have higher rates in Māori men's mental illness,
Yeah.
do you think like that's kind of touching on toxic masculinity? I believe
Yeah.
brown brothers have it more
Yes.
than Pākehā. Is that the case? And like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. Like in terms of the male experience of mental health is very special. It's very different. And what you've touched on in terms of like the harden up stuff, that really falls back to the idea or the relationship between fathers and sons. So a lot of the times that's where we get that idea from. Like, I don't know, you fall over, hurt your knee, go to dad, like, oh, start crying, like, hey, harden up, you know, just don't cry, put that away. And then from those very early experiences through to like romantic relationship breakdowns, you know, that's another heartbreaking or traumatizing experience. And then instead of expressing it because of those early experiences, we as Tāna Māori are like, oh no, just on our arms, put our shades on and don't cry.
Yeah.
But in a very different sense for us as Māori, like we also have very strong tikanga that allow us to express, which is our tangihanga. So in the time of bereavement, in the time of grief, in the time of, you know, pauri, ka wātea tonu te tangata ki te tangi. So we're allowed to express ourselves in that, in a weird contrast or ironic twist. So like, there's definitely stuff that we've been taught as sons, as from our fathers, or fathers to our sons. And then at the same time, we do have opportunities where we can do that. So I think, if anything, it's a return to those teachings of our tupuna, of our kaumātua kuia, ka wātea i te ngākau, so we can be uplifted in ourselves.
And I'm glad you said that, like, to go back to how our tupuna were, because I mean, I believe that men were, before colonisation, I feel like that's when all the like bihati kind of came in.
Yeah.
Because before that, apparently, like the Tānes were very, when settlers first got here, they said that the Māori men were so friendly that they brought their children into their war meetings and stuff like that. So,
Kids in the war meetings.
Oh, you know, but they were just very like, they were
engaged.
like, engaged with their children. It wasn't until kind of Pākehā came in, they were like, this is what the men do, and then it kind of got like that. What do you guys at SoftenupBro, like, how do you guys approach, like, how do you approach like a Māori bro and being like, bro, like, you just gotta be more, like, you know, because usually they're gonna be like, get out.
Yo, so the way we've kind of approached our kaupapa is through our panel talks. So last year we hosted 3 panel talks across Aotearoa, one in Whangarei, one here in Auckland, and then one down in Pōneke. And at that time, like, because both John and I understood that this is a big mahi, like it's kokore oti amawa nahine, so it's not going to be finished by the two of us, but we definitely want to be the ones to encourage the start of the conversation. So inside those panel talks, we have like guest speakers who come and share some of their experiences with mental health issues, and what we found is like, the brothers at the start, like all the Māori bros walk in, it's just like this, like tough ass, like sort of like outside on the walls, and then we say, oh, you know, how do my noho mai, and then everyone takes their seats, and then at the end, you know, finish our panel talk, finish with karakia, boom, the whole room opens up, and all the boys are either talking to each other or coming up to us and being like, bro, this is me, da 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 da. And so by just observing or by seeing other men that they respect or sometimes idolize, they have a permission to go and do it themselves. They're like, oh, the bro just expressed, you know, he was having a hard time when his baby came, or he expressed he was a hard time when he didn't get selected for the All Blacks or whatever. So if he's allowed to do that, then so am I. And so that permission transferred to them, and then they come up to me or John and they're like, oh bro, you know, like I've been doing this, or how should I do this with my mates? And that's really the key part, as empowering our tāne that come to our kaupapa to carry that conversation for their circle of friends. Yeah. Because we're not trying to do it ourselves, like we don't get paid enough to do that. We don't have enough time to do that. But for every male that comes in, I think for every whānau potentially, we are our own therapists, or we can be our own mental health service providers. So just empowering each other to do that as men, and then of course into our wider whānau, which is definitely another important part.
That's me.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about maybe how we can recognise it and like the bros around us, how maybe we can be like better friends to them, like sort of the tangible things we can do to try and help people who might be in a bit of a hard time. So touching on, I guess, the bro who's taking the kaupapa, although the issue to another bro, but as in terms of the person receiving it or
catching it, my biggest tip is don't try and fix it straight away. And I think as men, that's quite like, because we're so solution focused, we're just like, okay, here's the problem, here's the solution, fixed. I'm having issues with my boss, I'll say this to them, done. Like, no, I'm having issues, and then this is causing me this type of stress.
Yeah.
And so when you're in that space and the bro's like offloading to you, just try and listen. Like that's all you have to do. Just listen. Don't have to come up with solutions. Like affirm what they're saying. Let them know, like, yeah, gee, I hear you. You're valid. What you're saying, you're valid in what you're feeling. And also understand, like, it might take time to address the issue. So you're not going to get to it after the first hour of talking about it. It might take a week. It might take 2 weeks or whatever, depending on how big that thing is or how big that group is. So you have to be patient with your bro. Don't try and like force them into.
What's the problem, bro? Come on, let's take it.
Yeah. Okay, bro. Like, we're better now. Okay, sweet. Let it go. Because that's really what that harden up stuff is. Have a cry a little bit and then move on. So for us to them, so if you're listening to them, just let them know, like, take your time. I'm here if you need. If you want to come back to it, we can. And even sometimes, like, the bro might not even open up about the issue, and you also got to be okay with that. Like, they might not even get into, oh, this is an issue. They might just talk around it. They might share other things, but in that space, you just really have to understand, listen to them, and then when they're ready to move on to the solution, you can take them.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me
I
too.
feel like I'm the impatient one with my bro mates who's like, come on, what's your problem? Okay, yeah.
And I think even for like the bros there, because us as men haven't been taught how to articulate things, like, we know, like, sad, anger, happy, but like what type of sad? Like, I don't know, just sad. you know. So like the time it takes for them to actually unpack it is a lot longer because we don't have the words to explain it. We don't have like the tools to help and unpack everything. So I might even be there for like 20 minutes just thinking, like, am I sad? Like, am I actually sad? Yeah, I think I am. And we go back and forth with ourselves, and then we're like, oh, I'm sad because you said this. And they're like, oh, true, Joe, I never knew, or whatever. So yeah, just be patient and kind, I guess.
Yeah. I have just like a question for me. For me and my friends who are mainly wahine, for us, car chats are a huge thing. Like a parked car chat. Is that the same for Tane? Or like...
Yeah,
Girls are always gossiping and talking, That's why we just...
It goes down in a car.
Emotions.
That's why we're in cars now.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think if it's like, for Tane, if it's not like face to face, like, that's like a little bit confronting. We're like,
Oh, it's like, look at the windshield.
Yeah. Or like look out the window. So in the car, at a beach, I don't know, anywhere that has a view of not of each other.
Yeah.
And if you do have to do it at home, like, just sit next to them, not across from them. So because that can be a little bit like, I
Job
don't know,
interview vibes?
Yeah. A little bit interrogation. So I think just anywhere you can help make them feel a little bit more calm, a little bit more easy about it, then
Because they're already feeling vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Can't find it.
Yeah, I know. And then you have to like look them in the eye, and it's like, oh shit, like. So yeah, I think car chats is a good method as well.
So, like, there's heaps of ways you can kind of help with mental health, And I know, so you've got like a part-time mahi in kind of in health and fitness.
Yeah.
And John kind of has a music. Do you guys bring that in?
Yeah, 100. Yeah.
Like, how do you bring your kind of hauora side into all of it?
So yeah, again, I think reflecting on last year, we managed to host a kind of smaller scale event called Barbells and Brothers. So my brothers and I are big-time CrossFit. What is it? Practitioners, or we're into it, I suppose. Not very good. We're trying, or at least I am. And so we hosted this event called Barbells and Brothers, where we hosted it at a CrossFit gym. And it basically started with, I think it was about 30 men that came in and we all did this big group workout, or teams of three workout. And we just worked out for maybe like 30 minutes. And they had different components to it, different movements, whatever, finished up, and then we came together. And then we came together to have our panel talk. And then we had like some of the coaches come through, sit, talk about their mental health experience. But it's like a real buzzy thing, I think, for men, like this weird kind of euphoria we have post-workout. And I think if it's post-match, like you've just finished playing, you're sitting in your car kind of like this, talking to the bro, like you feel like a little bit more open. You're just like, my physical strength's gone, so like all I'm left is, I'm just left with myself now. And so afterwards, like we had this really, really beautiful cordial with our men, just talking about mental health, talking about physical health as well, because that's, I think, a very big part for men as well. yeah, so that's kind of us trying to put those two things together. And then for John, in terms of his music stuff, like, because he's such a good musician, he's managed to get all our musicians to our kaupapa as well to play. So he was actually one of our musicians as well. So that was really cool, and just have that break the awkwardness of at the start, because you know, at the start all the bros are like locked up hard. But then through music, it just kind of opened up the bros a little bit more. So yeah, we're definitely drawn on our passions, I guess, to try and create the kaupapa or add our little flavour to it. Yeah.
So, and the SoftenupBro, is it just you and John? Or do you guys have like...
Yeah, John and I, namely the co-founders, but my brothers, Edu and Tibine, are probably like our strongest supports. So Tibine largely takes care of like our finance stuff, and then Edu looks after like our tikanga stuff as well. So ia te wā, ka timata te kaupapa, ka timata ki te karakia, and then ka timata ki te mi. So just ensuring that we're covering those protocols for us as Māori, ensure that that's safe, and also that anything that is said in that space doesn't follow anyone out. So ka huri ki te karakia i te mutuna, so using karakia at the end to try and alleviate that stress as well.
That's what you're talking about in the beginning, where like the holistic and the cognitive kind of things coming
together. Yeah, all of that part, I think that makes us as Māori men. Yeah.
I love the different ways in which you like sort of start the convo. Like you have, is it called Brothers and Barbells?
Yes, that was in one kaupapa,
and then also like we were talking before off air about how like my friend Joey D, who's a comedian, came in and did a panel, and he's like quite funny. But I like that there's so many different ways you can kind of start these convos, and there's no one way that's like the way, because it's like there's different ins for everyone.
Yeah, 100%, and like and that appeal, I think, works really well for our audience.
Yeah.
It's like we just didn't want mātanga reo, you know, or only speak Māori, only do this, wear suits. And he painga tonu tērā, that's still a great thing, of ensuring that the people that are on our panels are reflective of the audience members that attend. And that was particularly true with Joey, you know, very funny and made everyone feel really safe inside that space, and actually quite liked.
Yeah, he's a clown.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. And then when we went to our whangarei one, it was a very different audience, and that's because like that's where we grew up, and that's where I guess a lot of the experiences my brothers and I drew on in terms of like being hard. Like all our mates are either like prospecting, and or have those types of experiences where they wouldn't express themselves. So I was like a little bit I was quite tentative going back. I was like, fuck, what if I get up there and they just like, you're still soft.
It's that like the pansy, like that kind of culture.
Like, it's my kaupapa.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, but that's the point of the kaupapa, is to go to those types of places. And ironically enough, I get up there, and then the bros that came are my mates who I shared those experiences with. And they were the ones that were there like, nah, G, we need to change. We need to be like this. And like one of our panel members, even like his experiences, like grew up here in South Auckland actually, a real hard lifestyle, but a great man now. And he was like very supportive of the kaupapa, which I was just saying, wow, even at that extreme, or what I perceive as extreme, there's still a willingness to learn or willingness to change. So yeah, like the way we've kind of tried to navigate those spaces is ensuring that the people that are on our panel are people that our audience can relate to, not just like someone that's like, oh, he knows nothing about who I am or what my experience is. So yeah, there's that been that dynamic for us as well.
Yeah, especially if they grew up with you, they're relatable, they know that you're in the same shoes at some point.
Exactly, yeah. So that was really quite fulfilling, I guess, to go home and to do that for our brothers, and share that experience quite easily.
So it's 2022, I'm pretty sure we've all noticed the change in social media and how it's contributed to mental health or lack of. Especially in the last, like I remember when I was at school, I had like the Bebo and stuff, which is, when I look back, that was unhealthy, like the sharing hearts, you know, the status that you were talking about.
Friends
and then I mean, we've spoken previously before about toxic masculinity, how it can be in girls too, because I believe it is. But how do you, like, what do you think, how has social media evolved mental health over the last few years? Because with TikTok, the kids are getting younger when they're on it.
As I guess part of the digital age, like it's only going to get worse, or it's only going to get more prevalent. Like this type of stuff's only going to get more common. But a weird kind of thing I've come across in terms of social media is that it gives you, limitless connection, but also a great loneliness. And so inside the technology, we're able to instantly connect with people across the world, people within your social circles, but it doesn't give the same gratification or the same, you're not satisfied the same way as when you have face-to-face interactions. And so you're seeing your mates, like, you know, go to Bali, seeing your mates do this, you're seeing your mates play games or whatever. And so you think that you're connected, but it's actually very lonely, because then you're reminded that, oh, actually I haven't seen this person for a very long time, or I haven't actually connected to them in a meaningful way. So that's, I guess, another part of one part of social media as this big tool. And I do have to say a tool, because it's also the user's responsibility to monitor how much they use it.
Yeah.
So it's really on us also to regulate what we're consuming, and also how long we're consuming for. But in terms of like the connection stuff, like, yeah, it can do many great things, but it can also leave people feeling very lonely, and also, I guess, like a sense of hunger, and hungry for
something
connection.
missing.
Yeah, ko wātia tētai āputa. So, so I guess social media in terms of its influence now is the comparison stuff, which is, you know, very deadly for mental health, because you're seeing, oh, this person's got this much money, or this person's got this many NFTs or whatever, and then you're like, far out, I don't have that much. I'm not as good. Whereas before social media, like, you could only do that with people you were, you know, in contact with consistently. But now you're seeing, like, Jake Paul make, you know, X amount of money. You're seeing this person make this much money. Like, wow, how come I haven't done that? It was like, well, you never needed to compare that before. But again, it also falls on the individual to be like, nah, I know who I am, and that's all I need.
Or don't follow that page.
Yes, unfollow, set timers or whatever for how much you scroll. But yeah.
I'm glad, because I wasn't sure if it was just a girl thing that, you know, like, that they compare, like, you know, you're comparing your life and you're like, oh, and, you know, you just start feeling shit, maybe I'm not doing enough. But that's the same for the tānes too. Yeah.
And maybe it's different, with using different things to measure ourselves against. Might be finance, it might be, it could actually be physical stuff as well, like, oh, he's got abs, I don't, you know, this person's made the first 15 and I didn't, I don't know. It's definitely those things though that men quite naturally do as well.
It's interesting though, because there's like two sides of that coin, because I agree social media can be real insidious, but like I know that heaps of my friends who are tāne know about SoftenupBro because of social media. The tool of it all.
So it's a great means for like getting kaupapa out. But in a weird way, I've also compared SoftenupBro with other stuff in an unhealthy way, and then realised, we're all part of this mental health kaupapa, so we're all just, you know, trying to make a change for the better. And so I quickly realised, like, that's not it. They're doing great things, we're doing great things, and we should actually be working together. So
Lovely.
Yes, so we covered like toxic masculinity, honestly, before Pākehās arrived, before colonisation. I don't know where that came from. But how do you but how has it evolved, and like what kind of, especially with Māori and especially with Māori men, how do you think that like milestones kind of like, I think there have been milestones to keep it alive. Like we've had the Alan Duff, Once We Warriors, so everyone kind of looked up to Jake the Master. When I was in high school, he was on. Everyone knew the If You'll Be Back speech. And that was kind of like, everyone knew he was back. It wasn't good what he was doing, but it's still kind of like, that was kind of like one of the only representations of Māori men around then, so they kind of had to like grab onto it and run with it. And how do you think, like, do you think that's an ongoing thing? Like we're still doing that, we're still seeing what we see, and, or not the tānes.
I think I might start going back to some of the stuff that our tupuna did, and just to compare it with, I guess, today. So like, with our tupuna and stuff, like we were openly lamenting, like we wrote mō tiatia as a means of expressing deep grief, and so that practice isn't seen today. So in terms of toxic masculinity then, I don't think it was a thing, and because toxic masculinity in itself is very dependent on gender roles. So for us as tāne and for wahine or tupuna, like, you know, those things weren't a thing. Like we definitely had, this is a whai kōrero, this is a karanga, this person will go do the fishing, this person will prepare the food, but that was a shared thing, like across whānau. So I think in the historical sense, I don't think it was there. But again, with the arrival of colonisation and the British Empire, it's definitely changed. What I'm seeing now So yeah, we had the Jake the Must phase, the Once We're Warriors, the warrior gene stuff as well. Like that was really bad for us as Māori. In 2022, I feel there's a great appetite for Māori to want to change that narrative and to not be like those things that we've seen. So the followers that come to our kaupapa, or at least follow us and provide words of praise, are definitely like, nah, gee, I want to change. I want to be better. I want to be better for my sons. I want to be better for my daughter. I want to be better for my partner, to whatever capacity. So I think there definitely is a readiness for the brothers to change. But though we just need more of a rautaki or more strategy to how to meet that dream. But yes, but in terms of like the stereotype stuff, like it pops up now and then. I think now though we just don't take it anymore. We're like, no, we can't even, not even a little bit, bro. It's not even a little bit funny. Like Jeff the Māori's not funny now.
Yeah.
So I guess that's also changing, which is helping with us returning to who we are as Māori.
I also think it's real easy, like as wahine, to be like, oh, it's entirely for Tāne to sort out, not our problem. We have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But I actually think we also can be like guilty of upholding these like toxic expectations of men. And like this, it's not gendered, the people who say harden up, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like I've seen women say that to men too.
Yeah, I've had like a similar whakaaro, not in like even when we started SoftenupBro, it was like a little bit awkward at the start because we were like far, knowing that as a society we're very patriarchal, and then here comes this male kaupapa that's like, oh, we got it hard too. And it was kind of like a weird phase where we were like, far, should we even do this? Because it feels almost wrong. But then we found ourselves in like, nah, gee, like this is problematic. Oh, John and I were talking to ourselves and be like, nah, gee, this isn't right. We need to change this. And then we kind of found that confidence to do so. And then to the extent of like wahine's role in this, like, so all our panel talks have only been tāne nahe, so it's just Māori, just male Māori that could attend. And we've definitely had wahine who said, oh, I want to come, I want to be part of the conversation. And this might be an uncomfortable truth.
Yeah.
The reason why we didn't have wahine is because wahine can sometimes be the trigger of some of that pain. And so we didn't want them in the same space. Like the bro's there with his missus, like listening to stuff like, oh, when my missus did this, and he has to like try and temper that or like try and manage that relationship. And it's not to say those relationships shouldn't happen. It was just something we had to first do to understand ourselves before we go out. And then, because we ultimately do want to include wahine, kids, mums, dads into the conversation as we go. But yeah, I agree with that part as well. Like the who says harden up isn't just Tāne as well.
Oh, but I also want to say, like, on the record, that I do think the way you've approached it does feel correct.
Yeah.
I'm more like, I think wahine, we can have our own wānanga about how we support the Tāne, but we don't need to be in the room. I think, like, right now, where we're at, the progress that needs to be done.
Yeah.
I definitely think the Tānes have the answers.
Yeah. I'm not trying to get the invites.
No, 100, yeah. And I think
I'm
it's just
trying to
our
buy the
healing.
t-shirt, but I'm not trying to get the invites.
No, yeah, and even that stuff's like all supportive. Like, just understanding the kaupapa, wanting to be part of it, is always helpful. I think it's just us as men healing with ourselves, and then we come out and be like, okay, sweet, this is what we need. But yeah, no, it's definitely a progress that we would like to make.
Oh, I see a change, eh? Like, I remember when I was like, at a kura kaupapa, I feel like, especially and with the haka, don't do the poi and stuff, all of that stuff. And I remember I used to call my bros puffs and all of that, or I'm just like, nah, that's like, I've definitely slipped out of that fun, no? But, that's definitely a thing. I think girls contributing to that. I'm not saying it's all our fault. I'm just saying that we're not the solution, and we're definitely not the.
No, it's all part of the one party. Yeah, it's all coming together, I suppose. Yeah.
It's fascinating like in the era of being like, oh, it's so fascinating me that you're like, is this even something we can do right now in this like political climate or whatever? Because if you look at like the mental health stats, especially for Māori men, it's bleak, it's dire, it's like it's an emergency.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, and like even with that, very strong reality, like we were still very scared, like because even when we were coming up with our slogan for our t-shirts, "Boys Can Cry," it originally was just "Boys Can Cry," and we were like, oh no, that might sound like we're saying like girls can't cry, and so it's boys can cry too, and that too was very important because it changed the whole meaning, because we're like, in addition to why you're crying, we can also partake.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I guess, but now we definitely know who we are from early days, like those stories from our earlier days. To now we're like, nah, e moe ana mātou ko wai mātou, we know who we are, we know what we're trying to do, and we know we're not trying to offend anyone on the way as well.
Oh, that's funny, like working out the t-shirt slogan, that could have potentially been very long.
Oh,
eh?
yeah.
Boys can cry, girls can cry, non-binary, fun. You know what?
Anyone can cry.
Actually, anyone can
Yeah.
cry.
And I was like, okay, well, we've lost ourselves here, you know?
That's a big t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's a big t-shirt.
Exactly, yeah.
Boys can cry too, that's me.
Do you guys, like SoftenupBro, have you guys, I mean, I don't want your whole business plan, but do you guys, are you guys trying to not stop mental illness, but are you trying to get in front of it before it's actually happening? I know you're doing some mahi with kids now, with CrossFit, doing CrossFit with kids in Te Reo Māori. Is that something you're aligning to, kind of like getting in there, trying to put some practices in, some tools, giving them tools before they even know that they need to use it? Or is that just... that's just another river and you're just meeting up?
I guess so. I guess they're all like important actions that are contributing to better health. For SoftenupBro, in terms of our like plan moving forward, is we understand that SoftenupBro is just a vehicle of change, and we're just but it could be anyone's waka. Like it could be, there's other companies such as Ballsy, I'm Hope, all these fellas that do great work.
Is that?
Yeah, Man Up, Men's Medicine, all these companies, they're trying to make a change for men, and understanding that we're just vehicles for that change, but we're not the only ones doing it. So I guess in terms of us going forward, like we understand that we could take different forms. So we could keep doing our panel talks, we could do a song, we could do whatever. So that's kind of SoftenupBro. And then for our health stuff, which I think will apply to anyone, is just that things like that can contribute to your mental health. So your self-worth, physical health, all those things contribute to it. So if you can get in front of that quite early, then cool. I can't even say that SoftenupBro is trying to get in front of everything because we're in such a dire state.
Yeah.
Like, because it's
just staying afloat.
Yeah. Now we're like trying to bring it back, you know, trying to reverse damage maybe. So maybe for our generations to come, ka pai tonu te oranga, so they may have a better outcome for them. But for us, and what we're currently facing is like, we are in an emergency state and we are in almost a reactive state. We're trying to like change what's currently happening and support who's currently affected.
I think we definitely need to touch on it. Like, I have to ask, how do you, COVID, and especially in Auckland, like we've had a lot of lockdowns. How do you think? Have you noticed, especially in your community and the people who come to your guys' group, have you noticed a shift in them? Like, have they been responsive and been telling you how hard it was? Was it harder? Like with all the lockdown?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I myself, I loved it. You know, I feel like my mental health actually went up because I had more time to focus on things. But I know it's not the same for everyone. Did you notice like a big shift? Like, did you notice a big change?
Yeah, but I think you've kind of touched on two sides. Like, there's definitely people who benefited from it. There's people who were alone for that whole time, and that's tough. Or like they had the stress of like needing to go to work, but they couldn't. So they have financial stress. So everything that for us as Te Reo Māori just stacks up on each other. And so there was definitely some of the stories that the bro shared, like quietly to John and I after the kaupapa. They'll be like, oh, that was tough for me, bro. I had to do this and that. So I think COVID is just as lockdown goes, it changed people's lives. And that was something we had to, even actually for SoftenupBro, we were supposed to host it last year. And then got cancelled because of lockdown, so we had to postpone everything for a whole year.
Whole year?
Yeah, we were like the week before we were about to start our kaupapa here in Auckland. They were like, okay, sweet, and NZ's going into lockdown, or the Prime Minister came out and made the announcement. So we were like, straight up, and we were like, okay, maybe it's next week, and then we just kept doing that.
Yeah.
And I was like, gee, no, we're gonna have to wait a whole year. And we managed to get through. I managed, to come out of it and then actually host the kaupapa, but. COVID as a dynamic has just changed people's lives. Yeah.
Where are you hoping, like SoftenupBro, do you guys have a base somewhere? Like, where are you guys hoping you guys go to? Do you want to like make it bigger, more people in?
Yeah, definitely. I think quite early, John and I agreed that we didn't want to become like a mental health service. One, because that's way out of our capability, and two, way out of our scale. But we can definitely increase the kaupapa we've already done to try and include more people. So I think over last year we've managed to get in 150 150, 160 men into our kaupapa across Aotearoa. And so we're wanting to like take that as a as like a benchmark to increase on. So like so with this year, potentially doing more kaupapa, more panel talks, more barbells and brothers if we can. And just try to get more men into these spaces and starting these conversations for them. And then so they can take it back to their kainga and have it with their whānau and friends.
Well, is there anything else you would want rangatahi to know in terms of maybe how to improve their mental health before getting there? Like, is there any other advice you could give rangatahi about keeping an eye on it to making sure that it doesn't just tip over?
And I guess specifically our boys, eh?
Yeah, because it's... And because they're not going to go, like, sometimes they're not going to go to their teachers and stuff. You know, sometimes they need to see you and the pro-drum people that they can see, you know, like bushmen, but, you know, doing, you know, being able to still express themselves.
And definitely that role modeling stuff helps. And that's what we saw through our kaupapa, is that, like, if they saw someone, if the bros saw someone that looked like them, they're like, oh, nah, sweet, it's safe. So, yeah, for what John and I can do for any of the bros that are out here now, I know, I'm going to say out there now, who are like, you know, sitting in the pool, ko tāku ki a rātou, he rā anō kei tua. So what I say to them is that there's another day, tomorrow will come. So the sun will rise again and then you'll be sweet. But when we're inside that dark and heavy space, like we just think, oh, koene te mutunga, this is it. But I promise you, the sun will rise again. Like every day it will come up. So I think that type of kōrero can also help for our boys that are sitting in it. And then just role modeling it, for all of us, you know, influencers alike, I think could do a really good thing about just being more open about their mental health and making that conversation more normal, or normalizing it, I guess. So, yeah, so you just gotta, like, oh, maybe this is, sorry, this is a long answer.
No, this is good. The perfect answer.
I like the influencers one, that's a good point.
One of the things that John and I did real early on, it's kind of like the start of our kaupapa, was that we made an agreement between just him and I that if I was going through stuff, I'd go to him, and if he was going through stuff, he was come to me. And that's it. I just needed one dude, he just needed one dude, and we just made that pact. And sometimes that's an easier way than just like showing up to your mate to go, boys, this is what I'm going through. Like, that could be really embarrassing, or could be rejected, or it's quite frightening, I guess. So if you have one G, if you have one bro you know you can trust, just go to him and go, G, like, I'm going to go through some stuff. I know I'm going to go through some stuff, so when I do, I'm going to come to you, and then I just need you to listen. And I go, yeah, sweet. And it's also easy to do when you're not in the wild of te pauri. Like, don't do it while you're in it, because then you're just like locked up. Like
that's your safety plan, Make it
so,
before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you make it in a preventative measure. So like outside of that time, so when it comes, like you go, okay, sweet. The bro knows, so if I hit him up, he's not going to be surprised.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good start. And then when you feel more conversation with the bro, those conversations are easier with the bro. You can maybe open up to your mates, and you also see a weird thing happen, or I guess a cool thing happen, is that when you do that, when you're brave enough to have that conversation with others, the bros will do the same for you.
Yeah, but they're just waiting, eh? It's just, But it's hard to be vulnerable, especially with your mates, and especially when you've been like,
when you've not been
butched the whole time. I don't know.
But once you change it, it's definitely helpful.
Is that like one of the ways in which you look after yourself? Because I'm like, this mahi's like, I'm sure there's some joyful moments, and I'd love to know about some of those, but also I'm like, I imagine this can get quite hard out for you, like running it as well. Is that one of the ways in which you look after yourself while doing this mahi?
100%. Holding space takes a lot of energy. Like, it takes a lot out of people. And even when we were in it, John and I were just so busy with it that we kind of forgot to do that for ourselves. And we got to the end when we were just like exhausted, like, I was like, bro, I haven't done like, anything strenuous, like anything hard, but I just feel really exhausted. And then we went back and we were like, bro, this was really hard to do this is hard to do this, this is happening. All these things that we'd kind of just sidelined because we were trying to focus on the kaupapa, which is ironic because we don't want that to happen. But yeah, and that's just us being honest, because we don't have the answers, and we're certainly not perfect in the way we do it. It's not like we have this down packed to a schedule. But yeah, that definitely helps us. One for me is talking to John and even my brothers, and physical health. So like going out and working out is just nice to get out of my head and just do something physical for an hour or so. So yeah, those are some of the methods that I've used.
I love the way you've kind of talked about it, as in like setting up a bro that you can talk to, because I think a lot of people think like if mental health happens to me, I'm like, no, you have mental health. It's sort of like having cough drops in the frickin' medicine cabinet. It's more a matter of like when. Like life will be hard sometimes.
And you will need someone to talk to.
Yeah. Prescribe some kata.
When I talk to my girl mates, we sit in front of each other and we're like, this is what's happening.
Oh, real?
Yeah.
Oosh. I'm always in a car, straight up.
Oh, no, couch.
The
So I
eyes.
can see if they're lying. Did you text them? Today. You text them.
I also want to acknowledge just somewhere in our kōrero now that like obviously we have like non-binary whānau and people who don't feel like they fit either role of tāne and wahine, but mental health is mental health, like sort of regardless of gender. So we'll get into like the intricacies of that perhaps in another ep.
These aren't all the answers,
Nah,
whānau.
this is, and that's what I love about your kaupapa. It's like starting conversations, giving people tools, planting seeds, but acknowledging like it's not going to be the full, I don't know
It's
what
a
I
long,
would say,
big
shabam.
journey.
Yeah, 100%.
This is only the beginning, whānau. We don't have all the answers. If you want to do CrossFit in Te Reo Māori, go to the box and Bruce Mac. That's where the bro is. It's helping all the kids out at Waitasi. But that's us for Tuku Talks today. You have been here with me, Turia Schmidt-Peke,
I'm Janaye Henry.
and we were joined by,
Heemi Kapa-Kingi.
and we say good night to you all.
Ka kite.
Or ka kite, depending on the hour.
I don't know, the hour.
Hei, rera.